Welcome YouTube, this is Chris with M7 Metalworks. Going to do a coal forge build today.
So this is my current forge. As you can see, it has seen better days. And it's extremely small, so I'm going to put my hand in here for reference. But the Firepot's not too bad. Size-wise, the forge table is awful. It's a side draft. And so the hood goes right there. And, you know, I've got a little blower here off to the side. I've got it kind of kicked aside here, but just a little, I think it's a Royal Chief. Western Chief Royal is the name written on there. And it works fantastic, but the table itself is just way too small and time to upgrade. And so I figured I'd also upgrade my Firepot as well and just make a new one. And so that's kind of what I've got here today. And so I'm going to show you some of that. Okay, so here we have my Firepot. And I made this out of 3/8 inch steel. And so I'll turn it over here in a minute. You'll get a little bit of better idea of the thickness of that steel. The flange itself is not 3/8 inch steel. I believe it's more like 1/8. So anyway, give you an idea of how this was made. This is the end of it here, the finished product for the most part. I do have a grill or a vent grill that's going to go in there, and that's the 3/8 inch steel that this entire thing is made of. And that's what my old Firepot was made of, and it was plenty good. Let me flip this over. And so here you get a pretty good idea of the thickness of that steel. I cut it with my plasma cutter, and you'll see that here in the video. I'm really just showing you the end product as much as anything. And by the way, when you're watching the video, this weld, and I don't recall if I even recorded it, but this weld is welding up, and all the rest of the welds are welding down. And definitely, trying to get a good look here at some of these welds, definitely if you see the welds going down, they were quite a bit better. Now, I didn't get overly concerned with little things like this. This is just where the flange welds on, and I wanted that thing to seat up nice and smooth with the table. And so even my tack welds here, I ground them off. Everything else is, I left the welds. I didn't bother grinding anything else. As you can see on the top side, try to get down in here and get a look at some of them welds. So none of the other welds I ground off. I just wire brushed them. Same with on the interior here. See if I can get you a good picture here of the interior. And really, you know, the key to a good MIG weld, you use my MIG welder on this, the HTP 2400. And I'll get a picture of that here in a bit. But that MIG welder does a fantastic job as long as you do a little bit of grinding on your edges and get some of that crud off of there. Welds quite a bit better.
Here you see the 3/8 inch plate steel that I used. It's very, very bad. That's the steel there that I'm showing you is for the table, and we'll get to that in another video. But this is the steel, and you can see it's got a lot of surface rust and it just needs a lot of cleaning. I'm showing you here the plate steel and how I've just used chalk to mark out the size pieces that I need. And then I'm just using the plasma cutter to cut through that. For freehanding, I'm not overly concerned about it being a super clean, neat job. Here I'm just cleaning up the edges with the grinder. Okay, so I've ground the edges and plasma cut it, and now it's just pieced together. Okay, so I've not welded anything, it's just placed together. You can see the joints are not super tight, and that's part of plasma cutting, you know, just not getting super precise on that, which is going to be fine. I'll fill in with the MIG welder, so it's not a big deal. Just showing a couple of tack welds here on the inside. Tack welds are complete and just about ready to start welding this thing up. Just showing an outside corner. You can see a little bit of penetration from the interior weld there. And again, just the outside corner. You can see the rough edges from my plasma cut and not using a straight edge. Here we've got, this is what I was mentioning earlier, where I welded as I went up. Not nearly as nice as when I decide to try going down. Okay, so here's a great look at the weld going down from starting to top, working my way down versus going up. And so you can see that the one going down is a lot more cleaner. And so I did all the other welds just like that. Started to top and worked my way down. You can see a little bit of junk just there. The silica kind of captures that in the weld. And really pretty clean welds, really pretty spatter-free. That HTP 2400 does a really good job. Just prep those edges. That makes a big difference in the quality of your weld. I've got the flanges laid out here and just getting prepped and ready to weld them in place. Just showing some finished welds here. I'll fill in some of those gaps and that kind of thing. Sometimes you notice between the plates, the flange and the actual 3/8" steel didn't quite span the gap there as much as I maybe would have liked, but not a very significant problem. I kind of pointed it out right there. And then the flange there, kind of welds kind of were high on me there. So not a big deal again. If I needed to, I could grind those down. Just giving you a reference with my hand there, the size. And then here I'm going to get a depth on the Firepot. It's probably approximately 5.5 inches. And then the finished product minus the vent.
And here's my HTP 2400. I keep everything covered up, and so I try to keep it covered up with I got a small towel that just kind of keeps everything clean and taken care of. But you know, I'm learning the settings, and just to give you a little tip on one of these, if you're interested in buying one, I keep a little book here, And so every time I do any kind of welding, I write my thickness down, and then I write my settings. So if I haven't done something but I anticipate it in the future, so I just write them down in this little book, and it really, really helps me to get an idea of what my settings are. And of course you can tweak and adjust as needed, but this can be, in my opinion, one of the very best MIG welders out there, as long as you can get your settings figured out.
Hey guys, thanks for watching. Tune in next time for the forge table build.